Alright, so I decided to do a video about each of the boys' birth stories. I thought it would be a cool thing just for me to look back on, and then also for them to look back on if they ever want to do that. And just to kind of document it while the memories and the details are still really vivid in my mind. So I'm going to start with Owen, since he's my firstborn. And then I'm also going to do one for Arthur in a separate video. Their births are so very different, like night and day. Nothing about the two births were the same at all. Okay, so starting with Owen, his due date was May 13th of 2013. May 13th came and went with absolutely no signs of anything. I had been, at that point, going to the doctor once a week. Nothing was changing. I think I dilated to a 1 centimeter, and then that was it. It just froze there, and each time I would go, no progression. Actually, the first visit that I went and they told me I was at a 1, I got like stupid excited because I had never done it before. I didn't know. So in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm dilating. Nobody told me like that doesn't mean anything. So I was dilated to a 1, I want to say for like 2 to 3 weeks. I had been reading online of everything to try. I went and bought like 2 pineapples and sat by the pool at the apartment and ate like 2 pineapples, and all it did was cause my mouth to burn. And then I went to the fitness center at my apartment and walked on the treadmill for, I want to say it was like 30 minutes to an hour, and all that did was just get me exhausted. So now I'm just like burning in my mouth and I'm exhausted, and there's still no signs of baby. So that was on a Monday, and I had an appointment that Friday for that week. And I woke up Friday morning just feeling like, period, like the first thing I noticed was my back was killing me. My lower back just felt like exactly like it's going to when you wake up and you're gonna start your period. I mean, it was awful. And so I was just like, oh, you know, I'm having so much back pain. Well, I kind of noticed the back pain like subsided. And then after about, I don't know, an hour or so, maybe an hour and a half or so, it came back strong again. And I started noticing this like happening, like as I was getting ready to go to the doctor, my back would start hurting really bad, and then it would kind of go away, and then it would start hurting really bad and then go away. So it was confusing because I had never heard of back labor. I didn't know anything about that. And but I wasn't feeling anything in my stomach, like no tightening, no pain, like nothing in my stomach at all. So I remember telling Leo, I remember telling him like, oh, you know, I think like this might be like the beginning of like early labor. Like my back was really hurting. Of course, I'm Googling it. I want to say it was 2 days before that I lost my mucus plug. Some women lose their plug a week or more before they even go into labor, and with some women they lose their plug and they're in labor that night. So I go to my appointment and I'm telling my doctor, you know, about the back pain, and that I just feel like it might be that maybe it's like the beginning of back labor. She was just kind of like, oh, you know, it's probably just like pain from the weight of the baby and everything, like, you know, your due date is already passed and the baby's getting big, and so it's probably just that. But she went ahead and hooked me up to the little baby monitoring anyways to see if I was having contractions, and indeed I was, but they were so far apart and I guess so mild that she pretty much just said it could have been basically Braxton Hicks, or, you know, that it didn't necessarily mean anything. So we scheduled my induction for May 20th, which was going to be that following Monday. And she kind of said, you know, I didn't really think that anything is going to come of this, but it could. But otherwise, we'll just see you on Monday. And they gave me a time to be at the hospital to be induced. And I did not want to be induced. I leave the doctor's office and we go back home. The back pain is still, it's the same thing. Nothing has changed. It's coming and going. I did notice that it was more frequent. The back pain was coming closer together. And I was like, well, because I kept telling him, like, babe, I really think that I'm in labor. It just feels different. Something's different. And he was like, well, do you want me to go to work? Do you want me to stay home? And I was like, no, like, go to work, because I knew that I wanted to labor at home for as long as I could. So he went ahead and got ready and went to work. And of course, by this point in my pregnancy, my mom and my sister are like blowing my phone up every day. Like, any signs of baby, like anything, any signs of labor. So I had already been like texting back and forth with my mom and my sister, telling them like, you know, I'm having back pain, it's really weird. So I just kind of did things around the house. I think mentally I kind of knew like this might be it. I procrastinate like horribly. So at this point, like, nothing was packed, no bags, nothing. So I started cleaning and kind of like packing Owen's hospital bag. And after my mom and my sister got off work, they wanted to come over and be with me or sit with me. I will never do that again. I will never tell anyone again. When I'm in that early labor stage, I will just keep it to myself and labor on my own. And don't get me wrong, I loved having their support. We're both sitting there with like timers pulled up on their phones. Are you having a contraction now? It's like, what's wrong? Are you having a contraction? Are you feeling pain? Like, should we start the timer? Like, let's see how long this lasts. And I was just like, oh my gosh. It was stressing me out. So, sorry for all the noise. Both kids are. Arthur's actually like playing on the floor right now, which never happens. I set him up with some toys, so we watched a couple of movies. We're just kind of like watching TV. By this point, not only is my back pain getting closer together, but it's getting more painful. I mean, it wasn't like excruciating, but it was for sure very uncomfortable. You know, I'm trying to just like labor at home. I'm trying to let it be zen. I'm trying to let it just be like chill and just let my body do its thing. And my mom and my sister are there driving me crazy. So I think after they had been there for a couple hours, they were getting impatient. Just like, I guess excited. Just wanting it to happen, wanting something to happen, wanting me to go to the hospital. So around 10 o'clock, I was like, okay, the pain was getting pretty bad. And also I was getting excited. I mean, honestly, I was just ready for something to happen too by this point. So around 10 o'clock, I decided I'm gonna go take a shower and start getting ready, and then I'll call Leo and, you know, let him know. So I got in the shower. Gosh, I must have stayed in the shower for like an hour. The water just felt so good. I can totally see how being in the water for like a home birth, like a water birth, I can see how that helps the pain. Because just being in the shower with that hot water hitting me took the pain down, probably like cut it in half. And then I got out and I went ahead and texted Leo and told him, you know, okay, I think it's time that we should head to the hospital. So then at this point, I decided to start packing mine and Leo's hospital bag. I don't know why I didn't do that ahead of time or even earlier in the day before I was in pain. Somewhere in that time, Leo finally got home from work and then he wanted to shower. So I was like, all right, hurry up, shower. I don't know, I guess we left the house somewhere around 11:30. I was like, we need to stop and get food. Like, and everybody was like, really? And I'm like, listen, I don't know how long this is gonna take, or, you know, but I don't wanna go all night without eating. So we stopped by Wendy's and I give me some nuggets, and I'm chowing down on some nuggets on the way to the hospital. And we get to the hospital, and this is why you need to pre-register. I hadn't done that, and so I get there, and by this time I'm like in a lot of pain, and the contractions are coming like every like 2 to 3 minutes. All in my back still. I never felt anything in my stomach. So they come and they escort me, and then they bring in like a stack of paperwork. My contractions, when they were coming, which was very frequent at this point, were intense to the point that I couldn't fill out paperwork. And I'm just like, at this rate, I'm not ever gonna get finished with the paperwork, and I'm never gonna get in a room, and I'm just probably gonna have my baby. They checked me and I was 7 centimeters. So they put me in a room, and immediately she's like, do you wanna go ahead and get pain meds and your epidural? And I'm just kinda like, I guess. Within, you know, half an hour, I'm not feeling anything anymore. Like anything. Not even my legs, not the contractions, back pain, nothing. I'm not feeling anything. The only thing that I did start to feel was crazy nausea. So I tell her like, okay, now I'm gonna throw up. But she brings me some alcohol swabs to hold under my nose. Apparently, alcohol, if you breathe it in when you're feeling nauseous, will, I guess, help. The smell of alcohol will help with the nausea. I don't know. It worked. It did work, but I was literally just like inhaling an alcohol swab for like a couple of hours. I was still having contractions on the screen. It showed that, but I wasn't feeling anything. The entire night went by, and then the next morning came around, and I don't know, I guess it was somewhere around noon-ish that they started coming in wanting me to, they said I was at a 9 and they wanted me to try and start pushing. I was feeling no urge to push. I was feeling no discomfort. I was literally numb from the waist down. I didn't even know how to push. Like, if you can't feel it, how do you know when you're even pushing? So they came in, I want to say 2 or 3 times, trying to get me to push, and it just wasn't doing anything. I guess I wasn't pushing the right way. So they give me a little bit, they come back in there, and then they kind of scare me. They tell me at this point, like, all right, if you're not able to push and, you know, this isn't going anywhere, we may have to do a cesarean. So, of course, that freaked me out, and I'm like, all right. Oh, someone suggested, I want to say it was one of the nurses, suggested a mirror so that I can maybe see, because at this point they said the baby is crowning, the pushes are just not strong enough to like do anything. So that maybe if I could see, and it would like encourage me or get me excited or make me just want to have the baby, want to try harder. So sure enough, they put a mirror, and I could see Owen's hair. I hope that's not too much, but it is what it is. This is a birth story video, so if you don't want to know about those kind of things, then. So that really helped. It really helped to have that mirror there and at least see that I'm doing something, because before that you just feel like you're pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, and they're not letting you breathe in between, and just nothing's happening, right? And Owen was born at 4:56 on May 18th, 2013. He weighed 8 pounds, 14.7 ounces, and he was 22 inches long. It was very emotional, as it always is, I guess, but I wasn't prepared. I didn't really know like how it was gonna feel or how I was gonna react. But I was like laughing and crying at the same time. It's just a feeling that you really can't describe. And there were no complications. He pretty much stayed in my room. I don't even think they had to take him from my room. I think, if I can remember, I think they did everything that they needed to do right there. I never wanted them to take him to the nursery. Actually, I guess it was, so I had him at 4:56, and so we made it through that night and then into the next day, and I got no sleep. And so then the second night that we had to be at the hospital, I was exhausted. So I finally was like, you know what? While I have the help, I'm gonna let the nurse take him to the nursery and like try to get some rest. So the nurse came in, and I told her, you know, can you just take him to the nursery for a few hours and maybe let me just catch a cat nap, and then you can bring him back. She was like, sure. So the nurse takes him, and I'm just getting, I don't know, he's probably been out of my room for like 10 or 15 minutes. I'm just getting to that point where I'm like dozing, you know, I've relaxed, and I'm starting to kind of drift in and out. And I hear the door open to my room, and I'm like, what do they want? I'm just starting to finally catch some sleep, and now they're gonna come in here and do something or poke me. And it was the nurse wheeling Owen back into the room, because according to her, they couldn't get him to stop crying. So so that was it. She brought him back, and I didn't try to send him back to the nursery again. And so I didn't sleep the second night either. The next day, it was finally time for us to be released. It was just like a sunny day in May. It was pretty hot outside. So we got him dressed in this adorable little giraffe going home outfit. That first night at home was awful. He did not sleep. We did not sleep. And now I hadn't slept for the past 2 nights, because the first night I was laboring all night, and the second night, you know, you just don't sleep. You're overcome with emotions and excitement, and then there's this baby that's wanting to eat, and nurses coming in and out, and you just don't sleep. So I hadn't slept for 2 nights, and then we finally get home, and I'm thinking, okay, you know, we're all gonna get some rest because babies, they just sleep, right? That's all they do. The first night, Owen didn't sleep at all. And I was trying everything. I was like, what is going on? And he was just screaming, screaming, screaming all night. Finally, around 8 a.m., somewhere around there, I called my mom and I was crying and I was like, can you please just come watch him? It's been now like 48 hours or more. I don't know. It's like all a blur. But I hadn't slept in days. And I was just like, please, like, I need some sleep. I don't know what's wrong with him. So my mom came over and she took his little swing out onto our patio at the apartment. And according to her, he slept like a baby, like nothing was wrong. He was an angel, which was great. Like, I'm glad he didn't give her problems, but it was also like, really, of course he did. We didn't have another night like that, thank God. But one of the things was I was so nervous with Owen. He had reflux, which I think might have been part of the issue the first night, and we just didn't know. So he had reflux, and I was super nervous to put him to sleep on his back because I didn't want him to spit up in the middle of the night and choke on it. But I know you're not supposed to lay them on their belly because of suffocation. So I was like, well, what do you do? Like, so for probably like the first like 2 or 3 weeks of Owen's life, and this isn't like advice, this is not recommended. I think like you're probably for sure not supposed to do this, but we slept him on a beanbag chair so that we could, like, you know, contort it and he could be like reclined. So that way he was on his back, but also if he spit up, I felt comfortable that he wasn't gonna choke on it. And then we slept on a pallet in our living room floor. So me and Leo were just camped out in the living room with some DVDs. We didn't have Netflix, we didn't have cable, we didn't have internet even. So we just camped out in our living room with box DVDs. We were watching a lot of Dawson's Creek and a lot of Modern Family. And ate fast food every day because God knows you don't feel like cooking, and I didn't really have anybody to, you know, Leo doesn't cook. I didn't have anybody bringing me food. And so every day Leo would just go get fast food. I know that's like really awful, especially because I was breastfeeding, but breastfeeding did not last long. And when we took him back to the doctor for that first appointment is when she recommended that we supplement. And so we did, and then once we started supplementing, my supply dwindled dramatically. The more that my supply dwindled, the more I would have to supplement to satisfy him, and the more I supplemented, it was just ignorance. Like, I didn't know much about breastfeeding. I didn't know how supply and demand really worked. I didn't know about an SNS like tube. I didn't know anything. There were even a few times where I kind of just stopped breastfeeding. I was like, this just isn't working. And then 2-3 days would go by and I would get that like that guilt and that like, no, I really wanted to do that. So I would go back to trying to latch him on again, and it was never the same. My milk never really, I guess, like came back, and I'd say around, I think it was 9 months the last time that I ever latched him. And I cried and cried and cried about that. So yeah, Owen's birth was a learning experience for sure. He was my first, but it was pretty smooth and very textbook. It was just like no issues, no complications. Arthur's, however, was a totally different story, and I am gonna make a video talking about Arthur's, which was much more dramatic and unexpected and twisted and emotional and everything in between. Nothing like Owen's birth at all. So yeah, that pretty much sums up Owen's birth story. I don't think I've left too much out. It has been 4 years, so there might have been some details lost there. Arthur is being super fussy. He's teething. We only have 2 teeth so far, and it's been an absolute nightmare. So I'm like, I can only imagine how bad this is gonna be. I'm gonna do Arthur's birth video next. I don't know when. I was hoping that I could knock them both out today, but he's teething and just wanting to be held, and I don't know if he's gonna let me sit for another 20 minutes and do another video. My tips, if you are a first-time mom and you have not given birth yet would be to pre-register at the hospital so that when you're in labor and you go, you don't have a book of paperwork to fill out. And then, I don't know. I mean, everyone's different and their preferences are different. Personally, I like to labor at home for as long as I can. Now, like with Arthur, I didn't get the chance to labor at home. I didn't even know I was in labor. I wasn't in labor, I don't think. And so sometimes you just can't help it. Like I had to be induced with Arthur. It was, like I said, a totally different experience altogether. But I would say if you can, try to labor at home until you absolutely just are ready to go, and then even put off maybe the pain meds and the epidural for as long as you can. Just know that it is going to slow things down. It's going to slow down that progression, that natural progression that your body is doing. If you stumbled upon this video and you've watched this long, I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching.